What is good, everybody? My name is Sam, and this is the Peace of Mind podcast. I'm gonna be trying to record at least a video a day now because I'm trying to really get into this whole rhythm of podcasting and stuff. Because I do have a lot on my mind and I do have a lot to say, so I should probably actually record it instead of talking to my girlfriend. So, I recently started a new job, and every time I start a job, it kind of stirs in me like this mental analyzation of life as what it is, because I think it's just because of the whole fact of people literally like work their lives away for a company that really doesn't benefit them other than giving them some worthless digital money or notes that don't actually mean anything. So from my stance in employment, it's very interesting to see like the way corporations function and like work, as far as how they treat their employees, the standards they employ, the way they enforce them, and all of that. I have a very different outlook on life, so I think that's what influences a lot of these thoughts that I have. So, in working and where I work now, there are certain standards for speed and productivity, and those standards are pretty strict in general. Of course, I just started, so it's not as bad for me, but understanding that these standards are solely to benefit the company and produce as much profit as possible is fair to an extent, but it also leads them to wring their employees dry. It kind of leads them to push for a level of productivity that makes the job slightly unbearable. Like, you can do it because you know you have to do it, but if you had a choice, you wouldn't do it, because why? So I think that's like what kind of generated my thought process and made it go in the direction I'm about to discuss with you guys, because from a company standpoint, like, yes, you need efficiency, you need profit, you need sustainability, you need your employees to be able to produce at a rate that makes sense for you to pay them, absolutely. But I feel like at some point it goes to the extreme, right? To the point where your job isn't enjoyable, where you don't want to come to work, where you just want to not do the job. And that's the problem, because you need employees to run the company. So when you do that, you have a high turnaround rate because people don't want to be in that environment. And it's more valuable to you as a company to make your employees comfortable to a level where they actually want to stay and produce more productivity for you, instead of implementing all these stringent rules that cause them not to want to be there in the first place. And again, I understand the need for productivity. I've ran a business myself before. I understand that this is necessary to make profit and for the business to make sense. But there are also other things that you can do outside of squeezing your employees dry to make this productivity happen. But the main focus is always squeezing your employees dry. So that's just like the first part of this conversation I like to have. And I had that conversation with my girlfriend this morning, and it kind of spiraled into a few other things because of like the general individualized, success-based thought process we have on working and living and existing. But I would like to say that the thought of working 40 hours a week, only have weekends off for the rest of my life, is a horrible thought. And I think most people would agree with me on that. That is a horrible thought. I don't want to do that. That is literally a waste of everything that I have going on in my head, all my talents, all my skills. A waste of my life, to be honest, because at the end of the day, I'm never going to own this company. I might get like a 10% share, maybe, possibly. But other than that, it's like I'm just working for somebody else to be happy, because they're not working. The owners, they do what they want. Maybe they'll go and in the shops or do whatever, like do some fly out and do some trips, do some trade shows or whatever, but like they're living their best life. They take vacation whenever they feel, all of that. So it's like at some point you have to figure out how to get out of that if you're not willing to do that for the rest of your life, because that's what's going to end up, especially in this economy, the way things are going, the way these numbers are adding up, the way the gas is going up, the food is going up, the housing is going up. You're never going to be able to retire. I'm sorry. Unless you do something else. Retirement is out of the question in the US now. It's not happening. even if you retire, you're gonna need another job. So it's just not gonna work. Side hustles, gig work, app work, it's just all so much to take in now as an adult. And I'm 32, mind you, so it's like I really didn't get my faculties together in my head till I was like 25 as a guy. So like understanding it in the way that I understand it now was completely different from back then, because back then I had like 2 jobs, 3 jobs, so it was fine, it's cool, I'm young, I can do this. But now that I see like the world as it is per se, like none of this actually makes sense to be doing. Even like based on like what the US dollar actually is, we work for something that has no value. Like legitimately, they're called debt notes because the US is in debt. It's not backed by gold anymore, so we're working for money that is virtually useless. It buys things, but eventually, because it's not backed up with anything, what we're working for is only going to be relevant in this country, and it's only going to be relevant to the things we use in this economy, which is also like strange to think about, because even down to like credit scores, we're taught like credit is important, you should keep your credit up, and you should do everything in your power to not bring it down, because it's an extra source of income, it's an extra source of like stability that you have, it's a safety net, all that. So being my family was not very financially stable when I was growing up. I never was taught that, but eventually you do learn through the internet or studying or whatever, however if you get a mentor. But even the subject of credit, right? And I'm gonna go to personal credit and then business credit, and then we're talking about the US and their credit and how it doesn't line up. So basically, what we have here is personal credit lines, which is dependent on your ability to pay things back, not use the full extent of your credit, because there's a lot of loopholes with credit stuff. You can't actually use the credit cards that you have in its full extent. You can't actually use the loans that you get to the full extent, because that subtracts from your credit score. But when you pay things, that does help your credit score depending on how you pay them. Hard inquiries, soft inquiries, like why? Why does somebody checking my credit lower my credit score? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? It's like when they say the game is rigged against you, like in every way possible, the game is rigged against you. So if I want to get a car loan, a credit card, a home loan, you mean to tell me that just them checking it lowers my credit score? Why? Who made that rule? And then if you get approved for the credit card, or you get approved for the loan, they report it to your credit and it goes up there. Now if you don't make payments on time, of course your credit goes down. That makes sense. Credit is a reflection of how reliable you are to make payments and or keep up with things. Fair enough, that part's fair. But then the usage of your credit cards, the usage of your credit limit, you can only use, I think it's like 30%, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you can only use part of the credit limit that you got. And normally people don't get credit cards because they want to not use the credit card. So when you use over that limit, it subtracts from your credit score. They keep up with that very, very closely. And then if you aren't able to make the payments for whatever reason, it subtracts from your credit score. Usually people don't get credit cards or, you know, all loans and stuff because they just want to do it out of not necessity. So I find that very interesting. I find it very loophole-ish and very like I gotcha type situation, where they're like, oh well, we'll give you a credit line of this, but you can only use this much, otherwise your credit score is going to go down and you're not going to be able to get another one. It's just very interesting. And then let's talk about business credit, because America is built for business. It's not built for the individual. It's not built for you and me to win. The game is rigged against you, I promise. So business credit works completely differently. When you're building business credit, there's a very set standard way that you can build your business credit to where you can get very large loans, larger loans that you could ever get with a personal credit line. So business credit is basically, it works like this. So when you start a business, you get a business bank account and you get what's called net 30s or net 40s, which are basically like them giving you 30 or 40 days, or 30, 60 or 90, I think that's what it is, but it's giving you that specific day amount to pay off whatever you bought from the lending company. So Uline is a very popular one. They let you do that. You pay off whatever, and then that goes to your credit history for your business. You have to get a specific setup account when you do business. So it's called a Dunbar and Bradstreet account, which is the credit reporting bureau for businesses. So once you do that, you can see your credit, you can see what's going on with it. But the big major difference with that is when you have a business credit line, the minimum like receivable loan and credit is like $10,000. It's hard for us to get like $2,000 loans as a person. So they'll just give you $10,000 if you have a decent credit history. And mind you, this isn't like regular credit cards or like regular stuff that you're doing. You're just buying something from a company that you was already gonna buy and not paying it off immediately. It's like, it's not the same thing. So if you were a small business that was opening up like a store in the mall and you need some shelving, you go to the Uline, you order the shelving, they deliver the shelving, and then you pay them back within 60 to 90 days, and you get that automatically put on your credit, which then goes to your Dunbar and Bradstreet account, which then shows a credit history over, if it's over a year, I believe, that you have the business bank account, and then you have good credit, they will automatically approve you for specific loans so you can grow your business. You can get business credit cards, you can get business loans. It's outrageous. So then you can then use those credit cards and those loans to the max, and they do not affect your credit score. I'm talking about max that $10,000. We bought a machine, $10,000 on the dot. It's gone. That does not affect your credit score. Now, if you don't pay whatever you owed on it per month on time, of course, that does affect your credit score. But as a personal person, you can't max out your credit. You can only use like 30%. So how's that fair? They don't punish businesses the way they punish the individual. And like, it's hard to get out of your situation because that is a thing. Now, of course, you can start a business, but again, this is like you doing business over a year, you building this over a year. So that most people, like, they don't have the time. It takes a lot of skill and know-how to actually build it in the proper way to where you have infrastructure, you have financial income records, you have like your taxes in order, all that stuff. So it's not just like you could just snap and do it and then you got business credit. But America is built for the business. America is made to sustain and grow businesses. Is it easy? No, because we don't have the information that's needed to make it easy. Like the information I just told you, I learned that from studying on YouTube and reading things about how to build businesses from scratch. So business credit is one of the most popular ways to build a business properly. And a lot of people don't get that. And a lot of people aren't able to acquire that. The other ways are getting grants, and then using things for collateral for money. But another thing we don't understand about business is the fact that business requires money to earn money. Like, you need real money to start making substantial amounts of money to where you can just not work anywhere else. And it's really hard to get there when you're nickel and diming. If you have like $20,000-$30,000 for this business and you only spend $10,000 because that's all you need to open your store, you still got $20,000 left. So if you have something going on, or you want to expand, you want to buy something new, you have money. You want to pay some employees, you want to pay yourself, you have money. You can't do that when you only have like $500 to put in the business and you got to spend the $500 on a machine. Doesn't work like that. But I digress. The big picture of the U.S. and why I find these things very interesting. The U.S. credit is based on bonds. So it's not actually based on their ability to pay anybody back. It's not. That's not how general GDP works. That's not how countries work per se. So it's very interesting to me that the opposite is true for the U.S. when it comes to credit. But the person that lives in the U.S. has all these restrictions on our credit. These people are $1 trillion in debt and they're still borrowing. How is that possible? You get in debt for like 3-4 things, right? That may be like $2,000, $3,000. They're not gonna let you get nothing until you pay that off. These people are $1 trillion in debt and they're still borrowing from people. So how is that fair? It's like, I'm not understanding what the difference is, but maybe somebody can tell me in the comments what actually the difference is. But I just feel like when these things like are fully thought out, it's like none of this makes any sense. Like it's rules for thee, not for thou. Okay, that's what that is. And a lot of this is my internal monologue of like analyzing the world as we live in it in America. Free healthcare should be a thing. Free housing should be a thing. Free food should be a thing. And not just like pantries, like actual, hey, come to the store, here's your food credit limit for the month, eat the food. Because at the end of the day, the American economy is propped up by the workers. Not by the companies, by the people that work at the companies. Because the companies wouldn't exist if they didn't have employees. It's that simple. So, in my mind, if I run a country, I want the people that live in the country to be as happy and as healthy as possible. Because guess what? When they're happy, they're healthy, they ain't always stressed out, they can go to work happily. They can come home and not hate their lives. Working 40 hours a week and having 2 days off and maybe having 1 vacation a year is a horrible existence. Point blank clear. I don't care how much you people have normalized that. This is not okay. And then on top of that, now you have to have 2 side hustles just to pay your rent. But you shouldn't have to pay rent because land is free. Land was here before they got here. You shouldn't have to pay for food because food grows on trees. I just cannot fathom how this has been normalized to the point where we are all miserable. Depression, anxiety, suicide rates, alcoholism, drug addicts, like all this need for therapy and mental stability is because the system has been set up in a way that causes us to go insane slowly. And people just walk around like all this shit is peachy keen and normal. It's not. Having to worry about where you're gonna live if you don't get your next paycheck is not normal. Universal housing should be standard. You should have a place to live if you work, period. Doesn't matter how much money you make, you should have a place to live. And even if you don't work. But then people are gonna be like, well, that's not fair because I work. So at the very least, if you go to a job and you put in hours at a place of work, you should have a place to live. If you go to a job and you contribute to a business, to a corporation, you should have food to eat. There's no excuse for that not to be a basic human right. But you want our labor though. But you want us to work in the system though. You want us to pay taxes. You want us to pay insurance. When a lot of this isn't even feasible because of how much the minimum wage is. Because of how much you pay people. Everything about the existence in a country like America makes no sense. This is what you're supposed to have as an adult. You're supposed to have a house, which costs money. You're supposed to have a car that costs money. You're supposed to have grocery, food, toiletries, expenses, all that you're supposed to have money for. You're supposed to have money for insurance, for your car, your house, and yourself, and your family. And then you're also supposed to have money for leisurely time and emergencies. All while never actually getting to be at the house that you pay for because you work the majority of your life. All while not actually getting to drive the car that you pay for because you work majority of your life. It's just food for thought at this point. It's just like, at what point do we not want to be miserable because of systems that don't actually benefit us? Normalizing the way this country is run is the worst thing we could have done for ourselves. I understand that if we want to get somewhere, we have to put in to something to get something out. Fine. Let's do that then. But having to figure out if you can pay your rent or feed your family next month because they just won't raise the minimum wage, they just won't pay you enough when these companies make billions of extra dollars every year that they could just pay their employees with, makes no sense. And I'm not talking about the mom and pop shops because we get it. Y'all just make what you make. You pay, and most of the time, somehow, the mom and pop shops are actually paying people what they're worth with what they can. It's the billion-dollar corporations that pay you as little as they can and then just hoard the money. It's ridiculous. If you have a billion-dollar corporation, you should be forced to pay your employees a percentage based on how much money you make a year. Because you're not doing anything with that money, you're just building more stores and paying your employees shit when you build those stores and hire them. If you want to give billionaire corporations tax cuts, then make them pay their employees with those tax cuts. I ain't got no problem with people not wanting to pay taxes as long as that money is going to something productive. I don't want to pay taxes myself because I don't believe in that shit either. But if it's got to be done to fund other things that we need, then have the decency, if you don't want to pay them, to pay the employees, which pay taxes. We pay taxes. The more you pay your employees, the more taxes they have to pay, which means it's still going to go back into the government. So if you give the people tax cuts, you're just going to get it anyway from us. But guess what? If they have tax cuts and they pay us more, it all evens out. And that's another thing that doesn't really make sense. The whole tax thing. As a black person, and I'm just speaking from my perspective, why are we paying taxes? Why would we do that? You still haven't paid us for the shit you owe us. So exactly why do I have to pay you to get paid? You already haven't paid us for 400 years. So maybe black people should have automatic tax exemption status. Because at the least, that's what you can do for us. No taxes. No taxes would do a lot for a lot of people. Because if you're in that $100,000 range a year, then tax exemption would make you very happy. And we're not even gonna get into the reparations conversation because that's a whole nother monster I'm not about to do in this video. But taxes, I get it. I get the need for taxes, but again, a lot of that money just disappears. As J. Cole said in his song, if I'm gonna be paying all these taxes, I need to be able to choose what my taxes are going to. Because if my taxes are just disappearing into a black hole we call the military, then that's a problem for me, because I ain't got nothing to do with all these wars. Okay, there are plenty of people that want to fund the military and are very happy to just send their money to that, but that's not me. Let's get some mental health programs. Let's get some food programs. Let's get some better school education. Let's go with that. I'll send it to that. Let's do that. But these trillions of dollars y'all spending on the military, and y'all just be leaving shit when you decide to walk away. Billions of dollars of military equipment we paid for. Yeah, I don't think that's the way that should go. We should have a say, because you wouldn't have that trillions of dollars if people were like, well, you just left $1 billion something in Iraq the other day, so we're not sending any money to the military anymore. There should be repercussions for this type of stuff. There are none, because they control everything. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy, and I have my views on things. But as a collective, we all should be thinking about this stuff. We all should be analyzing the world that we live in and realizing that nothing is adding up. For you, for me, for the future generations, for most of the people that came before you, it didn't really add up, but it was a little better for them because the economy and the state of the world wasn't the way it is now. Now, we are in a position where